The newest challenge to America's auto industry is coming from China. The number of Chinese auto exports jumped by more than 50% over the last 2 years.
Did you know China is now sending more cars worldwide than any other country? And guess what? They're not just any cars, they're electric. It all boils down to one thing: price. Whether it's an electric car or the regular ones with gas, China exports 71% of them worldwide. China now tops the list of the world's biggest car exporters, beating out Japan and Germany. The reason cars from China are so cheap is because they make a lot of them, which makes them cheaper to produce. They have some cost advantages because of their big factories and efficient processes. We will give you an example of why Chinese cars are cheaper. We're at a big place with lots of car brands like GM, Ford, Toyota, Hyundai, and many Chinese ones too. China is getting ready to beat Japan and become the top car exporter this year, after already passing South Korea and Germany. Japan and South Korea became rich partly because of their car exports, but China's car export boom happened later, even though it was already a big manufacturing and trading country. Despite the big news, it's not clear if China's car industry, which has too many factories, can help the economy grow and make money. China has been selling the most cars since 2008. Before electric cars came along, foreign brands like General Motors and Mercedes-Benz were more popular in China than local ones. Surprisingly, Tesla, a famous car brand from the US, sells a lot of cars in China too. While China sells some cars in Europe, especially in Belgium, the UK, and Spain, it's not easy to sell electric cars there. China mostly sells regular cars powered by petrol or diesel, especially in Russia and Mexico, even though they're making more electric cars. BYD is expecting to sell as many electric cars as Tesla this year. While BYD sells the most cars in China, Tesla sells more cars from China to other countries. Tesla is still the most popular electric car brand in Europe, where BYD didn't sell as many cars last year. Japan and South Korea have a few big car companies leading the industry, but in China there are over 100 companies making cars, and many get help from local governments. This is different from Japan and South Korea, where the government plays a bigger role in coordinating the industry. If local government keeps competing to help electric car companies, we might see a situation like what happened in China's solar panel industry 10 years ago. Back then, there were around 500 electric car makers in China, but now only about 200 are left, and more might shut down in the future. Even though the market is already full, new companies like Xiaomi are still trying to join in. Companies with lots of money and well-known brands might do better than new ones starting from scratch. Evergrande tried to get into electric cars for this reason, but it didn't go well for them. China is ahead of other countries in making electric cars because they're simpler to build than regular cars. Also, China has lots of cheap steel and electronics, plus the best supply chain for electric car batteries. China's CATL is leading the global electric car battery market with 35.9%. They supply batteries to companies like Tesla and BMW. BYD, which originally made batteries, also has an advantage with its own long-range blade batteries. While the electric car assembly stage might be split up, China's true strength in electric cars might actually be in making the batteries. In the future, having smart navigation, which includes self-driving, will be really important for China's lead in electric cars. Baidu and Geely are teaming up to make their first model, which should be out by early next year. One big reason why electric cars are growing in China is because of their charging stations. China has over 1 million slow charging points, more than half of the world's total. Plus, by the end of 2022, China had 760,000 fast chargers. That's way more than Europe and the US combined. In 2022, almost 90% of new fast chargers worldwide were installed in China. They'll make sure all major highways have charging stations. It'll cost $254 billion by 2030 to build all these charging stations. Tesla built most of the electric car charging stations in the US, including a big network of superchargers. When China sells cars in the US, they have to pay a 27.5% tax, and in Europe, it's a 10% tax. Unlike Japan and South Korea, China can't depend on these two important markets. They need to find other places to sell cars, like Southeast Asia and Latin America, where more people want electric cars. But in developing countries, there aren't enough charging stations for electric cars, which makes it hard to introduce them there. It would cost a lot to build these charging stations, and electric car companies can't afford to pay for all of it. China has the right experience, money, and reasons to invest in electric car charging stations worldwide. By doing so, China can help developing countries adopt electric cars. This should be a top project in the Belt and Road Initiative, which can make China's industry stronger and help the economy grow. Check out this SUV from DFSK, which is part of Dongfeng. Guess how much it costs? Just $9,200 in US dollars. Here's another example that shows why someone in Chile might pick a Chinese car over a more traditional one from the US. Let's look at the price difference between a Haval Jolion and a Toyota Corolla Cross. It's $6,000 cheaper for the base model of the Haval Jolion. When we ask buyers, they all say the same thing. The quality is good and the price is affordable. Many prefer Chinese brands because they perform well and are much cheaper than other brands. When asked, many replied that they would definitely buy a Chinese car again. It feels safe and comfortable. As you compare BYD and Tesla stocks, although BYD is the Chinese automaker we talk about the most, Tesla still sold more electric cars than BYD last year. But this year, it's expected that BYD will likely sell more than Tesla. By the way, they've just started selling both Teslas and BYDs in Chile. Although Chile isn't the biggest market, what's happening here is also happening in Australia and Israel, as well as in other countries around the world. These might not be the biggest car markets, but the Chinese car companies want to keep their factories running, so they're selling cars there instead of shutting down production lines. They're exporting, and more people are saying, "I like what I see, and I'm going to buy it." Back to you. What are the chances of Chinese cars getting closer to the market? Mexico could be a possibility, even building factories there to export to the US. In the next 5 or 6 years, many car companies might start putting their cars together in Mexico. Why is that a big deal? Well, if you make a car in China and send it to the US, there's a 25% tax. If you make cars in Mexico, you can bring them into the US without paying high taxes because of NAFTA rules. But if there's a small tax, it's much lower than the one from China. Because China makes cars cheaply, there's worry they could sell affordable cars like this SUV here. Some might say Americans won't buy Chinese cars, but it's something to think about. If you ask someone, do you want to pay $9,000 or $19,000 or $20,000 for an SUV? It's an easy choice. Everyone we talked to here said the same thing. When you can save so much money, brand loyalty doesn't matter anymore. And just to mention, many Americans might not even realize that Volvo is Chinese if they bought one here. The big car companies are trying to be more efficient, and foreign companies are building factories in the US. But the bottom line is, the costs can't come down as much as the Chinese are saving right now. Meanwhile, there is one company that seems to be doing well. It feels like they're immune to the EV fever. Oh yes, we're talking about Toyota. They have been making headlines for a while due to the same reason. Akio Toyoda and Kaji Sato seem to be focused on their hydrogen-fueled and hybrid cars. They still are focused on their ideas and are hesitant to hit the EV goal. Many have been, however, asking and instructing them to start their journey on EV. So why do you think every other person is trying to jump into the EV bandwagon? Do let us know in the comments below. Also, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. Until next time, see you all.